The film begins and a man named Henry wakes up in a facility and looks down to see he is missing his forearm and leg below his knee. A woman named Estelle helps him out of a water tank and tells he cannot speak but it is only temporary. She scans Henry, then tells he lost his eyes, so he now sees through a video feed. She then connects a robotic arm and a machine welds it into his skin so that he can now completely control it. He squeezes an apple and it completely explodes from the strength. Estelle also attaches a robotic leg and tells Henry she is actually his wife, but he won't remember that right now. Henry stands up and she puts on his wedding ring and tells him she loves him. She brings him into another room and he meets some scientists who are going to install a voice box so he can speak. Suddenly, there is a level 4 security breach and the lights go out. The door is blown open, which kills a scientist. Then a group of Russian mercenaries enter the room with guns drawn. They secure the room. Then their leader named Akin enters and begins to inspect Henry. He plans to create an army of mechanically engineered soldiers like Henry. Akin then uses levitation powers to kill the other scientist. But Estelle plays some loud noise which gives them a chance to escape. They run out of the lab and into an escape tunnel. As they run, they pass a freezer full of dead men. Estelle says if Akin gets a hold of her work, he will turn them into ruthless killers for his army. The duo reach an escape pod and are ejected from the facility above. They fall through the sky but pull the parachute too late and crash onto a bridge below. They get out, but another group of mercenaries find them and approach. Henry tries to fight back, but he is not yet able to fight effectively with his new limbs. The Russian tases him and he falls off the bridge and lands on a car as Estelle screams. He stumbles to his feet and hides from the mercenaries as they shoot a security guard questioning them. Henry hides in a shipping container and rips off a windshield wiper to use as a weapon. A mercenary walks in and he takes him down and steals his gun. He sends a car at the other guards and shoots at them as he runs out. Another van then appears and crashes into the guards, and a man in white hops out and kills 3 mercenaries. His name is Jimmy and he tells Henry to come with him because he is on their side. In the car, Henry grabs something from the glove box and Jimmy tells him it is his charger. He plugs it into himself and sees his battery is low, but puts it away because police are pulling them over. The police approach the car but turn out to be undercover mercenaries and shoot at them. Jimmy speeds off but is struck as he drives away and he dies. The car crashes and Henry runs for the subway as the mercenaries fire at him. He hides in a store and puts on a change of clothes, but the police discover him. He charges them and fights, and ends up killing one with a gun. Henry dashes out of the subway and boards a bus and takes a seat across from a homeless man, but the man turns out to be one of Jimmy's clones. And he grabs Henry's arm and takes out a tracking device. He bandages him up and tells him he needs to find a man named Slick Dimitri who works for Akin. He gives him a phone with a map and says Henry needs to kill him, then steal his electronic equipment and bring it to him. Jimmy then looks out the window and sees a man in a funny suit. He opens the window to make fun of him, but the man is actually a mercenary and he burns Jimmy. Henry is forced to jump out of the bus and grab some water to douse the flames on his jacket. Homeless Jimmy dies but says he'll be in touch with another one of his clones. Henry sprints away from the flamethrower man and runs through a park. Eventually he reaches Dimitri's home with the help of the map Jimmy gave him. He climbs up the side of the building and makes it inside the building. He enters the hall with his gun and kills a bunch of mercenaries before making it to Dimitri's room. Inside, he finds a bunch of hard drives, then sees Dimitri sitting motionless at a desk. He kicks him to the ground but he still doesn't move. Then suddenly Estelle appears on the screen and says Akin has started his army and soon it will be too late. Dimitri then springs up and attacks Henry, and the two engage in a wild shootout in the home. Dimitri then escapes and Henry jumps out of a window to follow him, now out of ammo. He rappels down the building on a rope then sprints after Dimitri. They jump and climb through the city and run up a large bridge over a river. After minutes of running, Dimitri eventually stumbles and Henry is able to take him down in the street. More mercenaries arrive and start shooting, but Henry manages to steal the electronics inside Dimitri and run away. He meets back up and finds a new clone of Jimmy, this time a drug addict at a brothel. Henry begins to shut down as he loses power, but a second Jimmy clone charges him up. The mercenaries then arrive and Henry grabs some guns. He fights through a hallway of mercenaries with dual pistols and eventually finds Akin in a room. The two fight and Akin throws him through a vent using his telekinesis. Henry lands in a parking garage and finds a new hippie version of Jimmy who tells him they need to chase after Akin on a motorcycle. He also meets 2 assassins who are also after Akin. The 4 speed off and catch up to the mercenary van. Henry uses a mounted machine gun to take out one of the vans. Then he drives through another one but the gun gets detached. He jumps atop a 3rd van and blows it up using a grenade. Then also takes out the 4th van. Now, Akin's truck is the only vehicle left which he breaks into and finds Estelle locked up. Henry breaks her out and the two hold hands in a teary embrace. But the reunion is short-lasting as Akin breaks in and knocks him out of the truck using a bat. He wakes up in the woods surrounded by mercenaries, and his camera eyes are messed up. They begin to dig his grave but hippie Jimmy arrives with his girlfriend and saves him. They reboot his camera then shut him off so he can charge. He wakes up to explosions and runs away as the Jimmy clone is killed behind him. He comes across a mercenary helicopter and kills 3 men as he sprints toward it. He grabs the rope and fires inside. But Akin cuts it and he falls into a tree below. On the ground, he gets a call from a new Jimmy who gives him a location to get to. He eventually reaches it and discovers Jimmy's lab. Inside, he meets the original Jimmy who tells him he used to work for Akin, but he betrayed and paralyzed him. Because of this, Jimmy created his own army of clones to carry out the things he couldn't do since his legs no longer work. Henry meets all the different clones who introduce themselves through a rehearsed dance routine. Suddenly, the mercenaries arrive at the lab and Jimmy gets angry because he thinks Henry led them here. But he decides to trust Henry anyway and sends him outside with 3 of the clones. Henry and the sniper clone engage with the mercenaries from the roof and take a few of them down. Then the punk Jimmy clone attacks them on the ground before dying. Henry heads back inside and meets up with the army general clone, and they arm themselves with guns and grenades. The duo goes into battle and engages the mercenaries on the steps. They have a long and violent firefight, all while defending the original crippled Jimmy from danger. They defeat the first wave, but as they go to move Jimmy to safety, they are surrounded by a second. The general tells Henry to slowly back up, then he blows up the roof, which crashes down and wipes out all the enemies. They drive off but are chased by 3 vans. They destroy all 3 of them by using a charged explosive, their guns, and a rocket launcher. Henry and Jimmy drive further and eventually make it to Akin's headquarters for the final showdown. They are met by gunfire, but Henry makes swift work of them using a grenade launcher. However, the original Jimmy has been hit in the neck by a shard from the earlier explosion. He doesn't have much time left, so he tells Henry to look Akin in the eyes when he kills him. Finally, he tells him he has found a memory block in his head and some memories should be returning soon. Before dying, the original Jimmy thanks Henry for being such a good friend. Henry continues upstairs and takes down all opponents using his grenade launcher. He reaches the top level and Akin appears on screen. He tells Henry he has already created his super soldier army. He also reveals that every soldier starts the same way, with Estelle saying she is their wife and telling them she loves them. Akin then taunts Henry and releases his cyborgs on him, which surround him on the roof and attack. For the next few minutes, Henry defeats the army in every way imaginable until it's only him and Akin. Akin uses his powers and easily slams him to the ground. He looks up and sees Estelle, who he thought was his wife, kissing Akin. She then laughs at Henry and the way he tried to save her from the lab earlier before. Akin taunts him too and says he'll have 100 soldiers by next week and each one will get a fake, cheap wedding ring like he did. Somehow Henry went rogue, but the others will do anything he wants them to. With the fight over, Akin kicks Henry and we see a vague glimpse of his face in a reflection. Now angry, Henry uses his last bit of strength to get up and grab Akin from a helicopter pad. Akin uses his powers to levitate, but Henry manages to reach him and punch and kill him as Estelle screams. He then jumps on the helicopter and Estelle yells at him for what he's done. She goes to shoot him, but Henry's robotic hand deflects the bullet and it hits her in the shoulder. Estelle stumbles and falls out of the helicopter but manages to barely hold on. She pleads for Henry to listen to his heart, but with the final act of the movie, he slams the door shut.